All right. Well, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, I wish my name was that cool. Sir, just honored to have you on the show today. How are you?
Hey, I am doing well. It is a blessing to be with you and have this conversation.
Yes, sir. Man, really looking forward to this. And there's honestly so much that I want to talk with you about,
Mm.
and so much heaviness, so much going on in the world. But I want to start maybe on a slightly lighter note, if that's okay. Talk to us, Otis, about your call to ministry. My
Mm,
understanding is that you went to school to be a filmmaker
that is
and
correct.
eventually pivoted directions to pursue ministry. Can you talk to us about that?
Certainly, certainly. Yeah, I did go to school thinking that I would be a cinematographer, filmmaker, but cinematography was something that I absolutely was amazed by. I was one of those nerdy kids that I want the making of the film, not just the film. So I'm the one who read the credits at the end, and it would drive my friends crazy. Like, no, we're staying through the credits, so I can see who does everything. I want to know who the gaffer is, uh, everything else. But I went to Morehouse College. I was, someone who ran track. I was an athlete. Started out, I was supposed to play football, but I switched to, track and field. Actually, I switched to track and field because I did not want to leave home as early as football, people playing football did, so I decided to switch to track. And it was during a warm down, actually, and during, finishing up from track that the call was very clear to me of when are you gonna stop running in circles, and I spoke to my girlfriend and who became my wife, about the fact that I believe I'm being called to ministry, but I don't want to. And I wanted to be a filmmaker. I could be an activist. I could go into law. My father is a pastor. I was trying to anything but that. Not that I had any kind of degree of, disdain for ministry. It was that I had such a high degree of respect for it and
Mm.
didn't think that I would be able to manage nor lead, especially when you have someone in your household who you have deep respect for. And my father and I, we extremely close and witnessed the kind of work that he did in the community and throughout his career. And thankfully, he's still living, not 90 years young,
Wow.
right? But made that pivot and went to seminary, to divinity school, actually, but I was still trying to figure out how to merge film and also ministry. I was trying to go to New York to go to NYU Film School. I'd taken an cinematography class. My cinematography professor was like, "Man, you did a great job. I will write you a recommendation." And I wanted to do the documentary program at NYU, and I said, "Hey, I could go to Union, and I could work with James Cone," but there were no programs that merged the arts and ministry at the time. I thought New York would be the best place to do it, and I ended up going to Yale Divinity. Never didn't know anything about Yale, but I had something called a scholarship,
Mm.
they
Amen.
offered money. I went sight unseen and showed up on the campus, and they didn't have a film program, and I was heartbroken that there was no real film program similar to what you would have in these other East Coast schools where you had these great film programs, but that was I thought a university would I be able to do a film program there? No. So I was, in seminary, in New Haven and got connected with a group of young men by the name of the Elm City Nation that did gang violence prevention. And that became a big part of my seminary training, working with brothers who used to be in the life and were working to transform the lives of other young men, and they became incredible mentors to me about how the church, uh, needs to communicate in a particular way to reach a particular generation.
When you told your dad that you wanted to go into ministry, what was his reaction?
His reaction was a combination you have to know my father. He is this really unique sage, and the way that he communicates takes my friends to really joke about him. He's very southern and slow in his communication, from Troup County, Georgia, but he's part Howard Thurman-esque and with a tad bit of Morgan Freeman at the same time, and the way that he communicates. So if you merge those two, you got my dad. And he was grateful and at the same time sad. He was grateful for the call, but he quoted Vernon Johns. Vernon Johns was the predecessor of Martin Luther King Jr. In Montgomery, Alabama. And Vernon Johns was I want to say he did the baccalaureate for his graduation when he graduated from college. And Vernon Johns said, "I cannot tell you about my success, but I can give you a long list of failures that may bless you." And he said that in ministry, you will have a long list of failures, or better yet, he said, you will spend many times in the valley, and then there will be moments when you get to the mountaintop. But the mountains are never meant for you to stay, only to give you vision. And you will have to walk back down into the valley where you will do ministry. He said, just remember when you were on the mountain, and it'll get you to your next mountain while you're in the valley. That's how he talked about ministry.
That's real talk, though.
Yeah. It was not like, hey, this is going to be great. He said, this is going to be mountains and valleys, and you will spend a good portion of your work in the valley. But remember the vision you had on the mountain.
Yeah. And your father worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is that correct?
That is correct. My father was actually before he met Dr. King, was the primary organizer for what was called the Atlanta Human Rights Movement, which was the desegregation of Atlanta. It was a group of students from Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, at the time was Clark Atlanta University now, Atlanta University, and Morris Brown College, along with a few students from some of the other surrounding schools are a little bit farther away. And they laid out the entire desegregation of Atlanta. And that was his entrance into the movement, became very close with the King family. And he succeeded Martin Luther King Sr. at Ebenezer
Wow,
Baptist
I didn't realize
Church.
that.
Yeah, he was co-pastor there. And has always maintained a great relationship with the family. And Dr. King performed the wedding ceremony for my parents.
Really?
And yeah. They got married on Morehouse's campus, and Dr. King came over and did the wedding ceremony. They were good friends. Andrew Young was the best man. And Jean Young, his wife, was my mother's maid of honor. It was a very small group, and they had a special engagement party in 1966 in Miami, which was the retreat for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and Dr. King and Coretta Scott King threw the engagement party for my parents, but it was the entire brain trust of the movement, from Ralph Abernathy to Andrew Young. I mean, you just name it. There, I have a picture actually in the other room in this office, and it was those individuals. And that was the meeting where Dr. King laid out what we later would know as the Poor People's Campaign. And so they were celebrating getting married, and they were also organizing and plotting on how to get rid of poverty in America and racism at the same time.
Oh, man, I'm sure it was never a dull moment being around Dr. King.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've heard amazing stories about his humor and about the entire family. And they have great love and respect for not only Dr. King, but Coretta Scott King, who was an extraordinary activist, anti-war activist, and supporter of the voices of women in a time period when that just was not happening, that many people have not lifted up often historically of how powerful she was.
Yeah. Otis, your church website says that you are, or we are, unashamedly Black and unapologetically Christian. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. God has created and designed us as who we are, people of African descent, and we are completely, without a doubt, unapologetic and unashamed in reference to that. And often, when people hear that, they assume race, not ethnicity or culture. And for example, down the street, not too far on the south side, we've got a Greek Orthodox. The Greek Orthodox is unashamedly Greek Orthodox.
Yeah.
Irish Catholic is unashamedly Irish Catholic. You just go down the list of different communities that celebrate the unique origin. The Roman Catholic Church is unashamedly, we're Roman Catholic in terms of our rooting. And we're unashamed in reference to the beauty and the complexity of being of African descent, and all that we bring to the table in reference to that. Not exclusive, but being willing to elevate and lift up. And that's one of the beautiful things about being a part of the Trinity community.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was looking at your Wikipedia, Otis, and
Oh, Lord.
I don't know if you've ever read that. I don't even know who creates this stuff, but it says on there that he espouses Black theology,
Mhm.
and I thought that was the word espouses kind of felt flippant to me, and
Mhm.
it's we don't call theology from white theologians white
Mhm.
theology.
Mhm.
Do you take issue with that category of Black theology, or is that a helpful distinction in your mind?
Not at all. For example, the kind of father of academic, quote unquote, Black theology is James Cone, but it also comes from a long line of people from Howard Thurman to even going back to the Christian militancy of someone like Ida B. Wells. But when we say German Reformed theology, we automatically know that we're talking about a particular space, people, and culture. If we were talking about Zwingli and we're talking about space within an Austrian or Swiss, we would know a particular space and a culture. What is unique in reference to people of African descent? We use Black as a catch-all. So I'm not able to say Ghanaian theology.
Yeah.
I'm not able to say Sudanese theology or Ethiopian Orthodox theology, or even saying Coptic. So the term Black is not is a catch-all in reference to speaking to one's particular culture and ethnicity. And ethnicity and culture have history and heritage. Race in itself is social construction. For example, when we speak of ethnicity, you're talking about food and music, history and stories. When we move to the racial category, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a social construction
Yeah.
that is not talking about food, history, and stories of people.
Why is that so? What you just described makes so much sense, but I
Mhm.
wonder why that's so difficult for so many white Christians in America to understand.
I
Because
think
you have critics, right, Dr. Moss, of
Mhm,
you make an idol out of race, or why can't we just move on from all this race talk? And in some ways, there's kind of a theology of color blindness in
mhm.
America, where we why do we even have to talk about this kind of thing anymore? Can you sort of address
Well, yeah.
that tension?
There is this privilege that those who are kind of outside of the community have the idea that I can pick it up or drop it down. I was speaking in Columbus a few years ago, and I was the only person of African descent, Black, in the room, and I said, "All of you are white because I'm in the room. When I leave, all of a sudden you become Scottish, German, and everything else. When you travel outside of the United States, they don't say, 'Welcome, white people.' They raise the question, first of all, 'Hey, you're American. Oh, your last name. Are you from Scotland? Are you from Ireland?' They begin to raise the question of ethnicity. Ethnicity has history. Ethnicity has heritage. Ethnicity has a story of a people. And for people of African descent, it has been the unique aspect that America has said, we want you to remove your story and adopt someone else's story.
Wow.
Cease to be all of the beautiful creative aspects that you are, except when we want to pick it up and we want to utilize a portion of your story. We want, how do we say it? We want your rhythm, but we don't want your blues. So we want the things that we want, but we don't want to hear the entire story and message. And when the entire story is told, we see that we are connected in a unique way. It's a gumbo. I love to use the stories of jazz and the stories of food and the Creole tradition in New Orleans. New Orleans, I think, is the most American city because it has something of 70 different accents in one city because of the French connection, the indigenous connection, the German connection, the Spanish connection, and the Haitian connection, which is a large percentage of people in New Orleans have some type of Haitian origin. And that's why jazz thrives in that space of
Wow.
bringing together. And then the food we know is gumbo. Gumbo brings together what's not supposed to come together and makes something absolutely extraordinarily delicious. The same thing as jazz music does the same thing. It brings together elements and creates a musical sound that is uniquely American, that one ethnicity cannot create. It must be jazz. It must be gumbo. It must bring those pieces together so that the rhythm and the blues come together to create a sound that is extraordinary. And that's what the idea of speaking from that theological basis means, is that we mine the complexity of the American story, not just from one chapter, but from all of the volumes that are placed on the bookshelf.
That's so good. I've so enjoyed, I would say the last couple of years have been on a journey of studying aspects of American history that I never learned
Mm.
growing up. And it has been so enriching to me. Um, from the Civil War up through the
Mm.
civil rights movement and studying and even learning about kind of the church's complicity in racism over the years. And that sort of honest look for me has, at least I'm hoping it has, produced a brokenness and a humility
Mm.
and an appreciation um, for Black people and our shared history together. But when I look around at so many of my peers in ministry and so many churches, I don't sense that same curiosity,
Mm.
um, and it hurts me. And in some ways, can understand, when you look at um, our current administration and taking action towards sort of rewriting or erasing aspects of that history. But it can only do us good whenever we look at actual history, right?
Yes,
That's the
yes.
only way that we can actually heal is when we understand the past and can move forward in a healthier way in the future.
Mhm.
Dr. Moss, is there what hope do you see for sort of racial unity along those lines in 2025?
You just spoke about it. The beauty and the brutality and the triumph and the tragedy of our history when we face it.
Yeah.
We face our fullness and fullness of our humanity that we bring before God. But I like to put it in musical terms. The When we choose to learn each other's stories and when we choose to learn each other's songs, we make something new.
Mm.
And jazz music is the best example of that. You take a saxophone and a piano. The saxophone was for the marching band. It was not to play with the piano. So I'm going to the New Orleans story again. And the bass was to be played with a bow, not with your fingers. And the trap drum set was only to be played on a 1 and 3 rhythm, not 2 and 4 or polyrhythms. The beautiful thing about jazz is it teaches America democracy because every instrument is given the right to solo out of its own unique tradition. So the saxophone doesn't have to sound like the piano,
Yeah.
and the piano doesn't have to sound like the bass, and the drum doesn't have to sound like the saxophone. Everybody says, I'm different, but I'm bringing something to the table that's going to create something beautiful. That's democracy at its best. That, in a way, I believe that in heaven, it's going to be a jazz band. It's not going to be a necessary chorus because we're all going to be bringing something so beautiful to the table in the process. And that's what we miss. We want a symphony where there's a director making a demand versus a jazz band where I get a chance to bring something to the table. And whenever that happens, something powerful happens in America spiritually. When that happens, abolition happens. When that happens, all of a sudden, workers' rights happen. When that happens, women receive their right to vote. When that happens, the civil rights movement happens. When those moments happen, we move forward. We're in a moment where I don't even know if we could say if it's a symphony moment because I don't think that the complexity is even there for the symphony. I think it's a moment where we're just going to play old records from a very small crate from a DJ who can't mix, essentially. It's what is happening in America
Yeah.
right now. We have the world's worst DJs who are unable, and that's the beauty about DJs. DJs will take songs from Bangladesh, London, and then down in Alabama, and everybody can get on the floor. We need a theology that recognizes that because the God we serve is a God of deep beauty and diversity, of utilizing multiple songs. You don't see birds getting upset because their song is different. The sparrow is not upset with the robin, and the robin is not upset with it. You need to sound just like me. No, we have the ability to be able to bring our song into nature, and it does something to the entire ecosystem in the process. America is yet to learn that.
Wow. Are you a musician?
I am not, but I love music. I mean, I am a music head. I mean, I'm a straight music head, man. I love it, and I like music and film. That's kind of my go-to in terms of how I relax. But
Yeah.
I love it. I'm trying to learn how to play the bass. I'm trying to do that.
Okay. Okay. What you just described was brilliant. Jazz and the orchestra. I'd never thought of it like that. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a rabbit trail here because as you were talking, I was thinking about worship sort of in the
Mm,
American church, right?
mhm,
There has been this sort of trend towards uniformity where
mm,
everybody sort of sounds the same, where
mhm,
every church is doing the same songs from the same people, using the same multi tracks, wearing the same outfits. This sense of um, there's not this sense of uniqueness. Like when you talk about
Mm,
jazz music, it is the musicians bring their complete selves. Yes, they're playing together, and there's moments where one person lays back and allows the other to sort of rise to the surface. But when it's your moment to solo, it's your moment to do your thing. And there's really, in jazz, there's no rules. Any
mm,
rules that you learned in music school, you can break those rules and it can work. Um, I wonder, Otis, if you could talk a little bit about that as it relates to music in the
mm,
church, sort of relating worship and music in sort of a black church
mhm,
context compared to what you've seen in a
mhm,
white church context, and what we can learn from
mm.
what happens maybe even in your church.
The beautiful and here's the important thing about learning stories. Within the Western tradition, there has been this idea, sacred, secular, within the African tradition and the Black theological tradition, the merging of the sacred and the secular. And what does that mean? That means that God is sovereign in every aspect of life,
Yeah.
but it also manifests itself in music. So here's the example. The originator, the creator, Thomas Dorsey of what we know as modern gospel music. He comes from Georgia. His original nickname was Georgia Tom because he played in a juke joint. That's a club for those who are listening and don't know what a juke joint is.
Yep.
If you've seen the movie Sinners, that's exactly what that's a juke joint.
Seen it multiple times.
And yeah, I mean, he's playing in the juke joint.
Yep.
He then makes a shift to play in the church. What does he do? He doesn't change the chords. He only changes the lyrics. So a woman from New Orleans who moves up to Chicago by the name of Mahalia Jackson sings a song called Precious Lord, Take My Hand. The chords of Precious Lord, Take My Hand are nothing but a blues song from the juke joint.
Yep.
So you merge two elements. You're ministering to the Saturday night group and the Sunday morning group at the same time. But the beauty within the Black church tradition is something known as improvisation. Improvisation is not making things up. Improvisation is that you have practiced so well that when a shift happens, you are able to listen to the Spirit in that moment.
Yeah.
One of the not trafficking stories, I apologize, but
I love it.
there's a story of one of my favorite musicians. And actually, if anybody wants to hear someone teach jazz, Wynton Marsalis, I think, is the greatest jazz teacher when it just comes to explaining the music, the history of music, and all of that. Because I've never seen anybody who can get 9-year-olds just elated about music history and people who are 50 years old just elated about music history. In 2000, and maybe it was about 2003, 2004, Wynton Marsalis, highly celebrated trumpeter. He plays classical and he plays jazz trumpet from New Orleans. And he had several runs, won Grammys and things of that nature, but it was in a slump, creatively. And he was playing, I believe, at a place called the Village Vanguard. And the Village Vanguard is a small, tiny club in New York where some of the jazz greats play. And as he's playing there, a writer from The Atlantic was dispatched to really just doing a profile on Wynton Marsalis. Is this guy ever going to get his groove back? He comes and hears him at the Village Vanguard. David, it's extraordinary. He goes into a solo, and the man is writing on a napkin saying, "This is pure magic." But as he's giving the solo, someone on the front row, their cell phone goes off, and the person stands up in the middle of the entire concert like this and steps out, and the man from the Village Vanguard says, "Magic gone," writes it on a napkin. But what does Wynton Marsalis do? He begins to play his solo on the tone of the cell phone ring. and
Wow.
people go insane, and then brings it back to the song he was originally playing and put it into the song.
Mm.
And the gentleman from the Atlantic said it might have been the greatest solo he had ever heard in his life because he was attuned to the improvisation, which is attuned to the spirit in a moment. And Black worship seeks, may not happen all the time, but seeks to be attuned to those moments, not just musically, but homiletically, in terms of prayer, in terms of what is happening liturgically. Can we be attuned to moments, what we think is an interruption, but may be a blessed interruption, that where God is speaking in that moment? And that's what happens in the liturgical aspect of Black church worship that we bring to the table. And that's when we talk about Black theology. That's part of Black theology.
Yeah. I've had over the last year with some of these conversations, I have had in comments, Black worship leaders kind of scoff at that term Black worship, essentially saying,
Mhm.
well, what is Black worship? Almost like by coming to faith in Christ. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but that almost like this, there's erasure of culture. But what's interesting about that is, well, whose culture gets erased, right? Because
Mhm.
every expression of worship is cultural. Can you speak to that? I just find it interesting, even among uh, Black worship leaders and pastors, where it's not sort of this, you don't all think and believe in the same way.
Mhm.
Uh, can you speak to that tension at all?
I think America, as you mentioned, wants this, is afraid to deal with the fullness of story.
Yeah.
When I traveled to Ethiopia and went to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, there is a way in which they worship. That they it's extraordinary because they only use a few instruments. They have a series of prayers that they are part of, and there is no evangelism. Their evangelism is centered on, I will live for Christ in such a way that you will have to inquire of me, why do I live that way? That's how they do evangelism. It's called embodiment.
Yeah.
The idea that you must embody Christ in everything that you do. And that's a cultural aspect
Yeah.
of how one worships. When I went and visited with her father, Matri, who is a Lutheran Palestinian living in the West Bank, the way in which he worshiped, he borrows from the German Lutheran tradition, but it's Palestinian in terms of from the music to the engagement to the demand that now after this, we have to have a major meal. And that's really when worship is about to begin because we are going to, after the liturgy, we are going to get to know each other in a
Mm.
special way. That's cultural. Jesus never heals the same way because everybody needs to be healed differently. We have 4 different gospels that share the story and the beauty of Jesus in 4 different ways. We don't want one way. And if in fact the gospel gives a diverse perspective, where we are in the world, we worship differently. Why should someone in Dothan, Alabama worship the same way as someone in Chicago, Illinois?
Yeah.
You should be bringing something to the table if you're in Appalachia or if you are in Seattle. And that's what America misses. I'm talking ethnicity. I'm talking story. I'm talking heritage. And we often get caught into the social construction of racialized myth that dismisses story and tries to replace it with a very, how should I say it? It tries to replace the story with a narrative where no one has any flavor.
Mm.
Everything is bland and everyone must be the same. I'm a sci-fi person. Our churches shouldn't be like the Borg showing up. Okay, that's a problem. The Borg is like, okay, we all got to be the same. No, we don't want that. The power is in the bridge of Star Trek, of people bringing different things to the table. That was the beauty of Star Trek. It was America on display.
Mm. Do you see, let me put it this way. What kind of challenge would you give to the American church, maybe the American evangelical church, that has lost its ability to hear story, maybe lost some of
Mm,
this appreciation of culture and mystery? Is there a challenge that you can give to those leaders
mm,
that are maybe listening
mm,
right now to maybe just crack open their heart a little bit, or maybe start to, what can they do even in their congregations to
mm.
open up this topic culturally within their churches? Anything?
If I may use another movie metaphor and image, the danger of the American church is borrowed from Star Wars. The American church thinks they're Jedis, but they're actually prophets for the empire or priests of the empire. And that is the greatest problem when you think that you're a Jedi, but you really work for the empire.
Wow.
And the American evangelical church has to raise that question of why were we at one point, American evangelicalism was a part of the abolition movement. That was workers' ministry and work. And then somehow it began to move away from the roots of the Woody Guthries into the hands of the moral majority. What happens when you lose "this land is our land, this land is your land" to in the words of Reinhold Niebuhr, to an idolatry around power, proximity to power.
Yeah.
And that is, um, I think, the great challenge. I think the American evangelical church has to reclaim Clarence Jordan again in America's Georgia and the Cotton Patch version, where it can become radical to those who have been marginalized.
Yeah.
Anytime that a church is aligned with the government is just a problem, period.
Yeah. That's
We
so
should
good.
always be um, a force that is creating trouble. We should be comforting the afflicted and afflicting everybody who's comfortable.
Mm. As John Lewis said, necessary trouble.
Necessary trouble and holy mischief is our job.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about this, Otis. There's a lot going on in your city right now that sort of ties into this whole idea. Um, and there is so much in the evangelical church, so much kind of selective outrage about certain things, or on the one hand, we're talking about revival because of the Charlie Kirk Memorial and a stadium full of people singing worship songs together. But yet in the city of Chicago, there's tremendous injustice that is happening, and either people don't know about it or we just choose to look away. Take us into what's happening in your city and how we should be responding to this moment.
Chicago is one of the most beautiful, amazing spaces with incredible people with an extraordinary story. We have challenges like any other city, but it is an amazing place. And recently, we witnessed something that in the entire history of this city we had never seen. An entire apartment building was under siege by federal officers, where every single human being in this apartment building on what is called South Shore, historic middle class and working class African American neighborhood, has some incredible history in terms of South Shore, were detained, zip tied, every door broken down, and children zip tied, some of them half naked, separated from their families with the claim that they were looking for quote unquote undocumented people. Now, normally, if law enforcement were to go into any building, normally, under normal circumstances, if the Chicago police, if the FBI, they know exactly where they're going. We're going into apartment 3A, and we want to make sure that everyone else is safe as we go in, because we're not sure what we will encounter, because we have great intel in reference, because our job is to make sure that civilians are kept safe and not traumatized.
Yeah.
An entire apartment building, citizens and some who were here with status were detained, some taken away, children separated from their families. It was a painful thing. And we're hearing these stories, people who are part of our congregation. That's not the only time. Then the day before that, a homeless shelter was sieged by these agents, poorly trained agents who received their $50,000 bonus and are not trained at the level of other officers. A homeless shelter, children and mothers separated and traumatized. And this is the story that I believe that when we speak about revival, when we speak about that we are to be the hands and feet of Christ, we have to be the ones who speak with authority and truth to power in these moments, that we want to care for and cover the most vulnerable.
Yes.
And the most vulnerable in our community are children. Children who they don't have advocates. They shouldn't be zip tied. They shouldn't be traumatized and are now waking up every night wondering, are they coming back for me? And no child should have to raise a question, where's my mother? Where's my father? They were with me last night, but I have no idea where they are now. This is what we're seeing in the city of Chicago, and the stories need to be shared. And people of faith, people of great care and love need to be able to share the story, that we don't support the kind of traumatizing activity of children.
It's so powerful to think about that we're called to speak truth to power, not cozy up to power.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, so many of us in America, Christians in America, have cozied up to power. And because of our position of, we have the privilege of looking away from situations like this. But for some people, this is a brutal daily reality. And I believe it is the prophetic call of the people of God to step into that. What are some things we can do, Otis? Because it just feels so hopeless sometimes, so overwhelming. And I had Jamar Tisby on the podcast, and I asked him, what keeps you going in the work of justice? And he talked about how it's long and it's slow,
Mhm.
but it's ultimately the most important work that we could be doing. But I want you to challenge us. What can we do in the face of this besides just look away and hope it gets better?
Take our faith seriously. I've said this to ministers before. You have to decide if your ministry is going to be like Moses or Jesus. If it's a Moses ministry, it'll be 40 years, but you're gonna have a rough time and they're gonna get on your nerves, you're gonna be miserable. Or it's gonna be a Jesus ministry where it will be short and also deeply painful. What kind of pain are you willing to handle? We have to take our faith seriously. But the other thing is that the power of and within the African American community, what is this, the Black theology, the idea of we believe in the blue note. There is no resurrection without the blues of Friday.
Mm,
And so we merge the blues with our gospel. We don't, it's just not praise the Lord and just going about our business. So we must learn how to speak truth. If we take our faith seriously, then we want to model and be like Jesus in everything that we do and speak truth to power. If we take our faith seriously, we want to inform, educate to empower. That when I'm communicating, I'm hoping that in the stories that I share, that someone can take hold of the story and that story will find a resting place in one of the ventricles of the heart and will speak in a special way. To be engaged in the welfare of the city. Politics is not about whether you're right or left. It's about the welfare. That's what polis means. I seek the welfare of the city. So the welfare of the city is the unhoused and the child and those who are educated and those who have mental health issues. The welfare of the city are those who have been traumatized by violence or domestic violence.
come on.
It's the welfare of the city. The welfare of the city says you determine your moral compass by your budget. So if my budget doesn't go to those who are most marginalized, then obviously my moral compass is not focused in that area. So budgets are moral documents. And I always tease churches, but I'm being very serious. You can tell a church whether they're serious about the development of young people. Just look at their budget. Don't listen to their rhetoric. The
Mm,
budget is the determination of their moral compass. And invest in the future. And I agree with Jamar Tisby, it's a long arc. And my father says it this way. He says, each generation is given a chance to put one brick down in the cathedral. That's it. That's all you've done. You
wow.
do good for the time that you have been given, and then you pass it on to the next generation. And if you do good from the time that you have been given to put one brick down in the cathedral, the foundation of the cathedral of our dreams that God has called us to, 7 generations from now, there will be a group who will say, I thank God for my ancestors who at least laid the right bricks in this cathedral. And we have an opportunity. People of faith, are you going to put a brick down that will bless all? Or will you take a hammer to tear down what has already been placed by those who went before us? I think that's the fundamental question. Take your faith seriously, or decide that you just want to work for the empire and be comfortable.
Wow. That's a word, my friend. I'm just kind of letting that soak in. I think that's a prophetic word for all of us. What's your challenge to pastors in America today?
Hmm. So I would say to the evangelical pastor, um, know that you can learn how to clap on 2 and 4 and not just 1 and 3. Black churches know how to clap on 1 and 3 and 2 and 4 because they don't believe in beat supremacy. They believe that there are a variety of ways to learn and express the gospel. Every pastor needs to have a mentor that is outside of their story. So who
Good.
will that be? Will that be someone of African descent? Will it be someone who is Latino? Will it be someone who is from Lebanon? Will it be someone who is from Bangladesh? Will it be someone who is from Ethiopia? I don't know. But soon as you connect with someone who's outside of your story, it will change the way you look at the world and change the way you look at scripture. I had a professor who was an indigenous professor, George Tinker, and I was talking about the Exodus story and the beauty of liberation theology, Black theology, and he said, "Otis, yeah, I appreciate that. That's great." He said, "But you need to know my community." He said, "In my community, don't come preaching the Exodus story." I was like, "Why? It's a great story. What are you talking about?" I'm being arrogant. And he said, "As an indigenous person, I'm the Canaanite. My land was taken." So those stories, we're very sensitive to those stories. He said, "Come to us talking about Jesus because Jesus is an indigenous brother." His,
Yeah.
he knows about our story. But if you don't know our story, you will make the mistake of harming, insulting, and dismissing our story because you never listened to our music.
That's a word. We move through life, Otis, with so much hubris,
Mm,
and confidence and certainty that, and I'm just talking in ministry circles and church circles, that we just bulldoze our way is the way, right?
mm,
And there is something about, and I'm trying to tie this in with like challenge to pastors with a humility that says, I know the theological tradition I grew up in, I know what my circle is like, I know what I've been taught, but maybe there's something else out there, another leader that I can expose myself to that will soften some of those edges and
mm,
will help me see the world in a different way with a little bit more compassion, with a little bit more humanity. And I just don't know how many are doing that, but that is a
mm,
necessary and important challenge.
mhm.
So good.
Yeah, we
Um,
we do it in everything else. We do it in everything. If you are a painter, a painter will go find somebody that is completely outside of their kind of genre of painting.
yeah,
They'll wanna learn from. The musician is gonna find someone who's completely outside of the what they play because they wanna play better. The basketball player or the football player will study other athletes. The best athletes learn from someone who is outside of their particular tradition. Kobe Bryant, the reason he was so good is because he studied soccer players. I mean, that's where he learned his footwork.
yeah,
It's through soccer. So every tradition does it.
yeah,
Except we think that we have to be exclusive to our particular tradition, our genre, our culture, our story, as if we can't learn something from somebody else.
yeah. Yeah, I've heard Patrick Mahomes talk about the way he plays quarterback is like a baseball player.
Yes.
How he grew up as a baseball player. His dad was a professional baseball player.
Mhm.
And so he didn't just read the manual on how to be a quarterback. It was, let me pull from these various
Mm.
streams.
Mm.
And he sort of innovated in a lot of ways a new way to play the position.
Yes.
You know, and man, the parallels to ministry. I just don't understand that line of thinking does not find its way into theology.
Mhm.
You know, it's so exclusive. Like we're so possessive, kind of gatekeepers of our theology is the only way.
Only way.
You
Only
know,
way. It's
um,
about power. It's a power piece, you
control.
know, that yeah, if when we release the idea of ownership and being in control and power, then all of a sudden we open ourselves up to the various tributaries that are actually flowing into the river that's taking us
Yeah,
into the bay that will ultimately move us into the sea.
yeah,
But, you know, so, I mean, it's a power thing. It's purely power.
yeah. Dr. Moss, I'm going to let you go here in a second, but I wonder if you could recommend to us
Mhm.
uh, a few books, maybe,
Okay.
that are maybe some of your favorites, or 2 to 3 books
Mhm.
that you give away a lot or recommend to other pastors or just people in general. It doesn't have to be related to any particular subject matter, but what are some of your favorite books?
The number one that I go back to often is I'm a Thurmanite, Howard Thurman. So Jesus and the Disinherited. I think that every person in ministry should read it. There were 3 books that Dr. King kept with him, was a copy of the Constitution, a Bible, and Jesus and Disinherited. So
Wow.
so it's a wonderful and powerful book and will hopefully reshape the way that we view Jesus and power dynamics and story, and it just does a beautiful job. Another one that I absolutely love is W.E.B. Du Bois's Souls of Black Folk. That's 1909. I think he wrote that one, and it's extraordinary. Each chapter begins with a a line from a spiritual, and it is essentially what laid out the foundation of what we would call sociology today.
Yeah.
But it shares some powerful stories and insights. Another is by a Irish theologian poet by the name of Padraig O'Tuma. And he has a book called 50 Poems to Open Your World. And he does commentary on poems, and he speaks about the fact that poetry is like scripture, learning how to read poetry. You're going to learn how to read scripture better and deepen your relationships. There is one poem in there that's just like one line that is so powerful about a gentleman meeting his father at JFK Airport. I'm not going to give it away, but that I'm just like, man, one line, and it says more than a novel in one line. I'm just like
Mm,
extraordinary. But there are some absolutely powerful pieces. I'm giving a copy to my son, and I've written notes to him in the blank spaces in the book, notes from his dad about, you know, when you're having moments of anger, when you are moments of disappointment, when you fall in love for the first time. This is how you are called to pray as a man of faith. And I have all these things, and it's in this book of poetry that I want him to have when I'm gone
wow.
from this space. And I go back to that book often because I'm a big lover of poetry,
Yeah.
big lover of poetry.
Wow.
And so those 3, and then I got one sitting right here that I've been reading. Um, It's called New Abolition, W.E.B. Du Bois and the Black Social Gospel. It's a 3-volume set, but man, if you want to know about some of the things I was talking about today, uh, Gary Doran, he did a deep dive as an academic into the Black theological tradition, and the history of everything from Morehouse College to Frederick Douglass, and you will truly understand the unique theological perspective that we bring to the table.
Wow. Love that. Have you read Imani Perry's new book, Black and Blues?
I have not. I have not. I have her several of her books.
Yeah.
Absolutely love her writing. Knew her when I was at Yale. One of the most brilliant minds today, and she is extraordinary writer.
I'm reading it right now, and it's just blowing my mind. You said you love poetry. Like, her writing is it's not technically poetry, but it is so poetic. But
Yeah,
she's tracing the color blue and telling the
Mm.
story of kind of Black history
Mhm.
through multiple centuries and generations, and it's just absolutely brilliant. I've been loving it. Real quick, let our listeners know about any of your work, books,
Mm.
documentaries, films. Where
Yeah.
can people sort of check out some of your creative work?
Yeah, there's I have my latest book is Dancing in the Darkness: Spiritual Lessons for Thriving in Turbulent Times. I have another one that focuses on preaching called Blue Note Gospel, that focuses on finding hope in times of despair. Documentary wise, the documentary that we completed a few years ago is entitled Otis's Dream, which is a documentary about my grandfather's attempt to vote in 1947 in western part of Georgia, known as Troup County.
Wow.
And we're grateful it had an amazing festival run, and won about 22 different awards from festivals in the UK and in the United States. And we started.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank
That's
you,
amazing.
thank you. So I'm doing films now. I'm a film producer through the Unashamed Media Group, and we just received a grant from the Lilly Foundation where we are doing a total of 7 films over the next 5 years, documentaries.
Wow.
And 2026 will be we'll start the run of the new documentaries that we will be laying out in 2026, and we're super excited about those that are coming out. So I'll keep you informed. But 2026, we've
Be a
got
big year.
three films that will be coming out in 2026.
Okay.
3 documentaries.
Yeah. Did you feel when you said yes to ministry, did you feel like the filmmaking dream was dying, or did you always feel like, I'm still going to do this?
Oh, it was always there. I mean, I was a big cinephile, and I thought maybe I'll just be one. I was like writing reviews for movies. I mean, I was doing just anything to stay connected. I'm subscribing to American Cinematography magazine. I'm just trying to keep up with that world. And the pandemic, really before the pandemic, but the pandemic allowed us to pivot, and the church was super kind to allow us to do some things very on a creative level.
Yeah.
And it's become a production company, and we've got a great team of people who are true experts who've been to school. Interestingly enough, my son will finish film school next year.
Amazing.
He's in grad school at Loyola Marymount and in writing and directing, and he's the real filmmaker in the family. He is incredibly gifted.
Yeah.
And he's got a couple of films already out, and he's directing the 2 that'll be out next year through our company.
Wow. That's incredible. Do you have sorry, I promise I'm going to let you go. Do you have a favorite film, or maybe a film that you've
Ooh.
rewatched the most? Film and documentary. What would you say?
Film and documentary. One recently that seen that is pretty powerful, especially for people who want a kind of a non-traditional documentary, is soundtrack for a coup d'etat about the Congo, the Belgian Congo, and then but it has no narration. It's told completely through news footage and music, and I've never
Really?
seen one. And it's very well done. It's very, very well done. I think it was up for Academy, also, but
Okay.
it was quite powerful. A movie that I go back to, quite often, one is The Godfather, because The
Classic.
Godfather is not only as but it's truly theological. Every Godfather begins with, um, a liturgy, being marriage. There is a wedding ceremony because it's trying to tell you this is not about crime, it's about the tragedy of a family, and just an extraordinary, extraordinary job. The other one that had one of the biggest impacts on me, if people can find it, I think it may be on Prime or Netflix. It's called Daughters of the Dust. It's by a woman by the name of Julia Dash, and it's about the Georgia Seacoast Islands and shot in with natural light. And I had the opportunity to be at a screening when I was in college. I'd never seen anything like it. The people look so beautiful. And because usually when you saw black people, they just didn't look great on film when I grew up. And I asked the filmmaker, I said, well, how do you have people looking so extraordinary and so beautiful? And she said, well, we couldn't use American film stock because it's not designed for people of color. We had to go to, I think they had to go to Germany to get a certain film stock for a film that is designed to film in nature, in creation. And she said that, she said, literally, the film is racist.
Oh my gosh. Literally.
And I was like, "Oh, it's a great line. That's a great line." Said, "Literally, it's just not designed to have you look beautiful. It's designed, um, for another community to have color
Yeah.
and to have shades and things of that nature. It's not designed for us, so we had to find a different film stock." And this little independent film that won a ton of awards, so beautiful. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. Oh, it's just, and for those people who are from the South, they know what the seacoast, I mean, it's a gorgeous place in general, but it tells the story in a beautiful way. It really does.
Yeah. That just reminds me about just the innovation and creativity of Black people.
Mhm.
Historically, there have been, so much injustice, but that hasn't stopped the creative spirit, the innovation
Not at
to
all.
rise above so many limitations to still pioneer and create new artistic expressions. And I don't think we talk about that enough, but that's for another time.
Well, come
Dr.
back and have
Moss,
this conversation about that. Man, it's great talking with you,
yeah,
David.
so great to chat with you. Appreciate you. Thanks for all that you're doing. And let's do this again soon.
Sounds good, my friend.